Hi everyone and welcome to a midweek energy update. For the first half of this reading, I have to talk about a little bit of astrology because a lot of very significant and also symbolic events took place on the world stage very recently, as in yesterday. And as an astrologer, there are moments in life when the fulfillment of your predictions is the highlight of your career, but there are other times when the fulfillment of your predictions actually leaves a rather bitter taste in your mouth because secretly you hoped within yourself that it doesn't enter reality, that it doesn't play out the way you interpreted it. And this is one of those moments for me personally, because if you have listened to the last week's horoscopes, the astrology behind the Beirut explosion is very symbolic because, Mars is conversing in tension with Jupiter, and Jupiter is the planet of expansion, so it expands the symbolism of Mars. And Mars in its home sign of Aries is extremely powerful, and also it's in shadow, which means that its most unfavorable expression is emphasized. And also, it meets in the sky. It is very close to Dark Moon Lilith, also in Aries. And the combination of this astrological energy definitely represents the destruction of fire. It can be physical fire, as we saw in the recent events, but it's also inner psychological fire, as in aggression, frustration, anger, rage, extreme dissatisfaction. But of course, to top this up, a very active Uranus squaring the Sun in Leo, the sign of risk, the sign of hazard basically. Well, these two energies combined definitely speak about explosion, and it's not just a physical explosion that we have all witnessed, and of course it's not just Lebanon and Beirut. Similar explosions have taken place all throughout the world. China is just one example, and there were other explosions around the globe. And basically this is very symbolic because, as above, so below, Jupiter squaring Mars, but at the same time, as within, so without. So basically, this is the psychological pressure cooker. All of us, regardless of where we are on the planet, we are living very extreme times when the uncertainty of future, even if that future is tomorrow, is simply causing our psyches to boil, our psyches to awaken to a reality which simply was not part of our normality just 5 or 6 months ago. So basically this is how we react. This is what is going on inside of us. The reasons why the pressure cooker is, building up differs to every individual. It depends on our personal situations, but pressure is still pressure. It doesn't really matter what makes that steam build up. And from a psychological and of course karmic perspective, we have reached that moment when the pressure simply cannot be contained and it has to be released. And just like us people, citizens, human beings are releasing our pressures one way or another, the big protests are one of the symbolic manifestations of releasing the pressure. Because when people are out there protesting, they're simply releasing their psychological energies. That is one of the ways that they can cope with the inner frustration, the inner pressure, the fears, the uncertainty, the inner turmoil. But of course, nature or the physical representation of the earth is mimicking and mirroring this. So this is the manifestation of the explosions, where Uranus, speaking in tension, in maximum tension with the Sun in Leo, it can cause physical disasters unfortunate accidents and very symbolic events, because Uranus is in the earth sign of Taurus, which represents the crust of the earth. So since we could witness these explosions, well, naturally, the other side of this expression, as in the natural calamities, the potential weird weather phenomenon, the earthquake danger, the volcanic eruption danger, tsunamis, storms, etc., well, these are also very active, because it's not just society that is under pressure, but Mother Nature also feels this pressure just like us. So chances are that this is just the starting point. This is just the first symbolic event of what's about to follow. Now later on, things will definitely get more intense, because this is where Mars is going to meet his sister, as in Eris, the planetoid of discord, the female awakener, the female warrior, the female archetype of the rebel in the sign of Aries. So everything is fiery, everything is intense, everything speaks about conflict, confrontation, assertive action. And both of them, as in Mars, the male warrior, the divine masculine, and Eris, the female warrior, the assertive side of the divine feminine, are going to hold a conversation of maximum tension with Pluto in the sign of Capricorn. And Pluto in Capricorn represents abuse, misuse of power, conflicts about money, management of money, equality, how the resources are spread out equally among the population. It also speaks about military action. It also speaks about law enforcement and maybe extreme expressions of law enforcement and the symbolism of the role police, and those who should be protecting the integrity of society and all the social structures. Well, this is where the sky might point to a certain overdoing it, misuse or excessive use of force and power. So naturally that is going to spark even more confrontations, even more protests. And since Jupiter is in this picture as well, so Jupiter expands, it amplifies everything. Basically, Jupiter adds a touch of spirit onto this, because inner truth is very alive in every single individual, but, centralized power as well, because they have their perspective, they have their inner truth, and since they act like one single organism, which is composed of many different cells, well, they are definitely going to fight for their truth as well. So if chances are that they have to surrender something, as in change the legislation or give people what they desire, well, this won't happen without a confrontation. This won't happen without a fight. And let's just hope that the fight is going to be legal in the courts of justice, Jupiter and Capricorn, and not so much on the streets. But this is building up to the events that are imminently going to take place in September. So violent protests, military law enforcement action, clashes are inevitable. Of course, as we progress in the week, we have a very powerful and supremely harmonious celestial conversation, a major blessing, where Mars and the Sun speak together in perfect harmony. But this is the kind of situation where, is it a blessing or is it something even more aggravating? It's just a matter of perspective, because Mars is in its home sign of Aries, making it extremely influential. The Sun is in its home sign of Leo, making it just as powerful. And when these two planets speak together in harmony, well, that means courage. That means that we are willing to risk everything, overconfidence, my way or the highway. This is a very, very strong psychological energy. So yes, for some people this will mean courage. This will mean finding the strength and the power to accomplish what they desire. But if what they desire is assertive, what they desire is rather violent, well, that is what they're going to get. So is it a blessing really, or is it something up for us personally to decide how we are going to use? Now in this part of the reading, I have asked the universe and my tarot cards to offer us a preview or a closer look into what's about to imminently happen in the world. I don't usually do this, but under the present moment circumstances, where the explosions, the fires, the protests, the uncertainty of all this situation might really intimidate and frighten some people. So maybe this would be a good idea to take a look into what we can expect further. And this is just the close future. It's not, looking at how events are going to transpire and transcend towards the very end of the year. This is just the close future, maybe the month of August. So the tarot cards open the reading with the Judgment reversed, the World, and the Six of Pentacles. Now this offers a rather divine perspective, because the Judgment reversed, well, it definitely speaks about unpleasant, fated events, bad karma. Everything that is taking place in the world stage right now is very, very symbolic that this is where we, all of us, as in a collective, as in a species, we need to change our ways. Like, for example, as in the Beirut incident, what does the sky tell us? What does this symbolic event tell us? Well, it tells us that we have to be way more careful with how we treat dangerous chemicals. We shouldn't really just abandon them there. We shouldn't really immerse ourselves into an illusionary confidence, well, that nothing is gonna happen, they're safe there, because you can never know. And even more symbolically, even going even deeper than that, well, what does a dangerous chemical symbolize? It symbolizes our own psychological poison, our own frustrations, jealousy, envy, that if built up and left there in our subconscious minds, well, what will it do eventually? Explode, just like the Beirut event. So on one hand, the sky is inviting all of us to be more diligent with what we do physically, as in, nature was affected by the explosion as well, and we are responsible for that. But at the same time, it is a even more symbolic invitation that we need to really, really take care of our psyches, whatever is brewing inside of us. When we are full of poison and toxin, well, we simply cannot function that way in any area of our lives. So whenever we feel that it is too much for us, well, then better take a break and not fear losing out on, money or time or opportunities or social connections. Because, if we take some time out to remove all this poison from within us, one way or another, that is always the wisest possible choice. Even if we have to give up certain opportunities, money, well-being, material well-being, and everything related to it, because we may have all the money and time and glory in the world, but if our own inner poison, everything that we have repressed in our subconscious minds, eats us up from inside, and it explodes in one certain fated moment, well, nothing good can happen. Because when we explode, when our inner poison explodes, our loved ones, our partners, our children, etc., are going to be the main beneficiaries of our explosion. So that always leads to tragedy, to heartache, to a broken soul. So it is where the universe truly invites us to embody wisdom. And the very first stepping stone to true wisdom is self-knowledge, to know yourself. Knowing yourself, knowing who you are, how you function, what your vulnerable points are, and of course, the deep desire of your heart that is so very important. Because basically that is the key to managing your life in a very wise and self-sufficient way. If we allow ourselves to just fall into illusion, like for example, take a high-paying job just for the sheer sake of money and not follow our passions, well, that is a sign of immaturity, spiritual, psychological immaturity, and a severe lack of self-knowledge. Because if you would embody self-knowledge, you wouldn't do something so horrible to yourself. So this is where, the judgment reversed. The sky is inviting us to embody wisdom, because we are a species, we are beings who are capable of the highest nuance of wisdom. All it takes is for us to will it, to embody it, to listen to our own souls. And at the same time, what else does this combination tell us? Well, it tells us that this is basically like a warning sign from the universe. It also represents a karmic closure, because in physical reality, in a very material, palpable perspective, well, I think everyone learned the lesson that we need to be way more careful with chemicals, with dangerous substances, what we do with it. This is where this karmic closure was like a slap on the wrist, that we need to be even more responsible than this. And this is exactly what it's going to produce: a heightened degree of responsibility, diligence, change in legislation, and the prevention of a much greater disaster than this one. Because, this symbolic event is going to trigger health and safety checks all throughout the planet, in big plants, for example, deposits, etc. And chances are that a way more catastrophic disaster is going to be discovered before it happens because of the check. And if that, plant or whatever might be an atomic reactor, well, maybe this very unfortunate and sad event saved even more lives by taking place the way it did right now. Now, moving on, we have the Emperor clarified by the Sun reversed and the Ten of Cups reversed. Now, Emperor with the Sun reversed is very clear. It represents that very soon our leaders, representatives of centralized power, or maybe representatives of the international community, maybe the WHO, etc., all of these people can embody the symbolism of the Emperor. Well, they are going to make very unwise decisions, which are going to be highly controversial. So the Sun reversed, it is going to trigger the egos, the survival mentality, the survival instincts of a lot of people all throughout the planet. So this can represent the start of a massive legal battle, but at the same time, the Ten of Cups reversed, that represents a massive division, an inner political warfare, where big political parties, very, very influential groups, are going to fall apart, and an inner conflict is going to take over the world stage, basically. So this represents a massive political, ideological, philosophical, and it can even be religious battle. Now, another way to interpret the Sun reversed, well, it might not have to do that much with centralized power, but rather big stars or very famous people, VIPs, relevant figures, as in movie stars, etc. Everyone who falls into this category, everyone who has at least a cultural or social influence, well, we can expect a series of shocking revelations, shocking disclosures, maybe interviews, maybe some stars doing very, very silly things, big divorces, big split-ups, Ten of Cups reversed. But, the Emperor can also represent royal families, so very controversial events can take place inside royal families, which will change, once again, not just the political, but also the cultural landscape. And last but not least, towards the end of August, we have the Moon clarified by the Ace of Cups reversed and the Ten of Swords. Now this is not a very nice combination, because the Moon represents the awakening of the soul, but maybe not in the most favorable sense possible, because it can have much to do with fears, insecurities. It can have much to do with the primordial instincts reaching our rationality and taking control. So it can represent that people are going to have enough. They are going to give in to their fears. And when someone is animated by fear, then they are not going to do the most logical and rational things. And the Ace of Cups reversed, well, that means mass unhappiness. And why is this important? Well, you see, when someone is very happy, when a person is aligned with their own happiness, that means that their heart space, that everything in their heart, as in their passions, everything that they love, is radiating through their beings, and that is a massive power. When someone is happy, or when someone is fighting for happiness, well, they're capable of anything and everything. It is when the universe almost conspires in their favor. But unhappiness is the same energy, but on a different frequency. And that can also motivate us. That can also give us superhuman strength almost to accomplish even the most extreme things. So basically, this combination of cards speaks about when the pressure cooker has already exploded psychologically and socially. So regardless of what it means, protests, any kind of legal action, or maybe people out of sheer vengeance boycotting like big organizations, big companies, a lot of conflict, turmoil, basically the energy of unhappiness. And what does the energy of unhappiness represent in physical reality? Well, think about the Great Depression, which astrologically coincides with Uranus in Taurus. That is what the energy of unhappiness, when unhappiness floods over a civilization, a culture, or even the whole planet, well, that is what it does. When a lot of people are falling into depression simultaneously, well, that is basically like the very air around us is being poisoned by our psychological states. So that can only lead to the situation described by the Ten of Swords. And I won't even interpret it. Simply just look at the image and make up your own mind of what it can mean. Now for the final part of the reading, I also included a couple of spiritual guidance type of channeled messages. And first we have the Hermit clarified by the Tower. Now this is maybe a divine guidance or an advice which we might not expect under these circumstances, because basically the universe is telling us that we have reached a moment when we have to prioritize service to the self and at the same time self-nurture and self-care. This is a moment when basically our relation with the self is the most important thing in the universe. And in this specific tarot deck, which is called Yoga Tarot, the Tower is depicted as a huge mountain which needs to be climbed. And this is the universe's advice that right now is definitely not the best moment to climb that mountain, because I think our fall, our slip, the risk of accidents, Uranus square the Sun in Leo is almost guaranteed to fill our lives with unforeseen, shocking, or maybe surprising events in the present moment, which can very, very quickly change our future plans in an instant. That which we almost know for guaranteed today might be totally different or unavailable tomorrow. And not always in a negative sense, it can be the most positive sense as well. Because chances are our problems, struggles and obstacles can disappear in an instant, so climbing the mountain would not really be necessary. So this is where the divine is telling us to trust ourselves, trust our inner voice, but also trust our rationality, because the hermit is the symbolism of Virgo, and Virgo is a very rational, it is a very mentally quick and adaptable sign, and that is what we have to embody. This is where all of us have to enact the spiritual example of the monkey, who is very agile, versatile, intelligent, and it solves all its problems mainly with its mind and dexterity. And another way to interpret this is basically the mountain, as in the tower, can represent our big plans, our big passions, whatever we are accomplishing in the present moment, but we might have to take a small break and not just push so very intensely fast forward, because the global and the social landscape can change very quickly. So we have to rather adapt a slower but steady pace where we can just work with the flow, stay in the present, so to speak, and not really quantum leap and jump straight to the finish line, to the future. So if all the progress with your big plans, with your big accomplishments is put on hold right now, either by inner forces, as in you feel fatigued, tired, or you just don't feel like it in the present moment, or by outer forces, any kind of blockage, well, don't worry, things are exactly as it should be. This is a moment of respite for you. And finally we have the Judgment and the Ace of Coins, and this is a very beautiful message, because some people are extremely vulnerable right now, more materially than in any other way, and this is just a beautiful message and guidance from the universe, that no matter how bad your situation, especially the imminent future situation, looks like, the universe has got everything under control, and it's definitely not gonna let you down. The Ace of Coins can represent divine care, divine support, especially from a material perspective, so which can mean your physical body, your health, food on the table, the strict necessities, roof over your head. So the universe actually had your protection and supporting you and being there for you through this rough period. It had already planned this, so don't worry. It will definitely have your back and it won't let you down. So hold on to hope, hold on to your faith, and hold on to your highest philosophies, because that is exactly what the Judgment means. Your perceptions, your worldview, and as long as you perceive the universe, the divine intelligence, as a benevolent force, you cannot go wrong. It will not fail you and let you down. Well, this concludes today's reading. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. Don't forget that our website, our online platform, 1 Million Nights, is launched and operational. So if you would like a personal reading, if you would like any advice, guidance with your personal situation, feel free to check out our website, create a client account, and afterwards you have access to all of our advisors who come from a myriad of spiritual paths, traditions. They have various different gifts and skills which they would like nothing more to put in your service. Thank you again for listening. Please don't forget to like and share our website, because we are at the very beginning, so every gesture of support means a lot for us and it will help us grow. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, bye for now.